자, 엽조슈.
Okay, Ramona.
Rolling. Okay. Can you please state your name and your position?
My name is Sansar and I'm a Deputy Chief of Party for the Resilient Communities Program.
So, Sansar, you've worked for Mercy Corps since 1999. What do you see as its 20-year legacy?
Well, looking back 20 years ago, I can now proudly state that we are one of the most respected and well-known organizations in Mongolia. We are one of the most influential and innovative organizations in Mongolia. We have pioneered many activities that soon became a trademark and were later adopted by government and NGO and private sector. For example, we have helped to create Hasbank. We started market days events. We implemented a loan guarantee mechanism. We started anti-corruption projects. We had a project focused on disabled people, so many of those programs and projects were at the time were innovative and made a big impact on lives of rural Mongolians.
So when you say created Hasbank, especially considering that, I know what Hasbank is, but a lot of the viewers of this won't know. Can you talk to me about what it was like starting Hasbank, why it was started, and how it has grown since we first helped found it?
Well, in 1999 we did an assessment and tried to identify gaps, obstacles to developing businesses in rural Mongolia. And one of the biggest gap was lack of access to financial resources. So that was the reason we started first non-banking financial institutions called Gobin Ikhlib, and then this was a start, and then we merged with the UNDP funded organizations, and we agreed to create a bank called Hasbank.
And where is Hasbank now? Is it a small
Hasbank
bank?
now is one of the.
Start over because I was talking over you.
Go ahead.
No, just go ahead. I just didn't want to interrupt you.
Hasbank now is one of the four biggest commercial banks in Mongolia.
So how do you believe Mercy Corps has evolved as an organization over the last 20 years?
First of all, we expanded our presence from 4 IMAX provinces to 11 provinces. Second, our first project was focused solely on economic development. Since then, we have implemented more than 25 projects, supporting economic growth, building good governance, and improving management of natural resources. Third, we are now working through partnerships with national and local government and organizations and NGOs. And these are main things that we achieved during 20 years.
Mm-hmm. So what similarities does RCP have with past programming and what differences as well?
The main similarity is that we are focusing on economic development. We work with the private sector. We work in agricultural sector, and we're helping rural businesses to grow stronger and more profitable. The main difference is that we are building resilience of rural communities, which is a totally new concept, and we are applying a new approach called market system development approach.
And why do you think, and I know this isn't in here, so just speak, this isn't in here, it's a follow-up.
In here? No.
So I mean, so you said, so we're leveraging a new approach, we're leveraging market systems development, which is new to Mercy Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think for RCP it was important for us to change the way we did things, we approached things?
Why it was important
To try a new approach rather than to try something that we've done before in the past 20 years?
I think Mercy Corps globally adopted this new concept of resilience, which is building capacity of people to withstand any shocks and stresses in their environment. So I think this was the main goal. In the past, we would do separate interventions. Things would get back to normal, but after some time, again, those shocks and stresses repeated, and target populations were not prepared to respond. So we, at HQ, we agreed that building resilient capacities was paramount. It was a very important thing, and once we built their resilient capacities and we change, and once we do systemic changes, even after some time, after the project and program ends, people would still be able to respond, to any shocks and stresses they experience in their lives.
Thank you. All right, so, and can you do me a favor?
Yes.
It's okay, because I know it's you, especially with that question, I didn't prepare you for that. It was just a question that I wanted to follow up with you.
Are you testing me or what?
No, I just realized it would be useful to know from you. But can you, if you want to say can you just do silence, and then can you just pause for a second instead of saying so it'll be easier to we can just close it, edit it together. Okay. All right, so.
I always say something like that.
Well, don't say just pause. And what do you think?
Oh, he wants me to be emotional.
Be emotional and don't
Emotionless.
say Just channel your anger at me and just pretend you're really angry at me. I know it's true.
If I'm angry, I won't be able to say a word. Okay.
Okay, all right. Well, okay. Emotional and talkative, that's what we want. What challenges do you believe are faced by the livestock sector today?
Just not. Livestock sector in Mongolia faces challenges like overgrazing, poor animal breeds, poor feeding practices.
Start over?
Yes.
Cool.
Livestock sector and herders in Mongolia face challenges like overgrazing, animal diseases, poor breeding practices, poor feeding practices. Also, they lack access to financial resources. Lack of management skills, business skills also hamper their growth of local businesses. Sure.
And how do you believe RCP responds to these challenges?
So, with RCP, we are working in partnership with government and business sector to address those challenges. For example, we are implementing a breeding project in Kushatsong We are working with rural veterinarians and building their capacity to identify and prevent animal diseases. We are working with animal feed producers and helping them to increase supply of animal feed. What you left? I forgot, you know. We are supporting young entrepreneurs. We are providing them with grants to help them start their new businesses in meat sector. We are building market linkages between herders, between suppliers and meat processors, and helping to introduce new standards, meat standards, quality standards, by organizing trainings and offering consultancies.
So, off of that, can you name 2 or 3 achievements of the program to date?
Okay, first one is obviously the Hushat project. This is a project we are implementing in Hushat zone of Seleng province, and we are working with local animal breeders, and we are working with local herders to improve their quality of herd by introducing Kazakh white cattle, which is basically Hereford cattle, and this is the first one. Second one is we are working with veterinarians and organizing trainings and helping to build the capacity. And third one is we work with the Mongolian NGO called Development Solutions, and with them we are working with young entrepreneurs in 8 IMAX, helping to build their business capacities and providing sub-grants and supporting them to start their new businesses in meat sector.
Okay.
This one maybe I should say again, but later, okay?
Which one? So
how do we respond? Because I forgot to add more, but it doesn't have to be very perfect, right? I mean,
no. Yeah. I think one thing I was just about to flag is, so I think you've done a good job of expressing some of the really good and impactful activities that RCP is responsible for. Mm-hmm. But I think what needs to be emphasized is that this is a systemic approach, and yes, all of these activities are integrated. And our goal isn't just to introduce a Hereford cow or to increase veterinary capacities, although that's part of it. It's to create a livestock system that works, and it works for herder communities, and it works for market actors, and it works for everyone involved, such that it can be a better contributor for economic growth. So I think we can go back to that if you want. We can do it now. What do you feel more comfortable with?
Let's just go continue, and then maybe we can go back and see what were the places where I could improve, and then repeat it again. Yeah.
Okay. So what strategies did your team employ to achieve what you have achieved? So like high-level strategies.
First of all, we conducted a needs assessment in Mongolia and identified gaps and challenges. Second one, we, as I mentioned before, we applied a new approach called market system development approach. This was the main strategy. The strategy is based on changing the system. It's a systemic approach to the whole livestock sector. Third one was third one was we formed partnerships with local government and NGOs and private sector. Partnerships are key to success. And the last but not least is we provided trainings and technical assistance and sub-grants to our partners and selected businesses in rural area. This overall was our main strategy.
Okay. A little bit more emotion on that one, like excitement. Like pretend you're like a salesman trying to get someone to buy something. But good, I would also add that with MS, so I think in general, like again, it's like you're doing really well at describing like what activities we're doing, but also what their importance is. So why is it important for us to take a systemic approach to livestock development? It's probably, why is that so important? Or it's like, why is it so important that we supply feed grants, feed sub-grants to producers? What was so important? Like what did we get out of that strategic resilience assessment that we did in 2016? So I think it's like the first dot's there, but then it's like the second connecting point. So making the case to HQ, like why all of this happened and what is it doing? Do you want to move on and then kind of we can come back?
Let's move on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So name 2 or 3 areas in which you think RCP needs to improve.
I would say we could do a better coordination communication between our team members. We could implement more activities on pasture management. Yeah, these 2 main areas I think we could improve.
And so improving on them, like why do we need to improve on them? Like what results, how will the results be better if we improve in these key areas?
By improving these key areas, I would say we would, our project would have more impact, we would be more effective, our activities would be more effective, and we would achieve our goals and objectives sooner. So more beneficiaries, less waste of resources.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So.
And I also would like to mention that pasture management, is the one activity that we didn't pay much attention, because pastures are key to agricultural development of the whole Mongolia, and effective management of the pasture would lead to better quality livestock and better livelihoods.
Can we stop? Sorry, there's a really loud truck out there. That was really good though. I think that was great. Can we start over and can you say that again about pasture management? That was really good.
Pasture management is key to development of agriculture in Mongolia. Better pasture management means that quality of livestock would be better, more income for herders, and less pressure on pastures and more quality animals.
And what are some of the challenges that you believe led to rangeland degradation in the first place?
Well, herders started raising their animals, and because there are no markets to sell them, their only motivation is to raise as many animals as possible. And pastures are still free in Mongolia, natural resources are still free. So instead of investing in quality of animals, herders try to raise as many animals as possible to increase their sales, and more animals is also some kind of safeguard against zoot. So that were the primary reasons.
And while we're here, can you define Zud for me? It's a very unique natural disaster to Mongolia.
You want me to educate you, or you want
I know what Zud is. I mean.
Okay, Zod is a kind of a very unique disaster that happens usually in nomadic, in societies where nomadic herding is prevalent. And this is a combination of drought and severe cold winter when animals have no feed, and then they starve to death, because either it's too cold and there's a thick snow covering grasslands, and animals cannot penetrate through thick ice and starve to death.
Okay, so moving forward, what strategies will your team employ to improve and adapt to new challenges in new contexts?
Mm-hmm. First of all, our team members need to sit down and discuss and assess and monitor our progress and identify gaps and areas where we could improve. Second, we should identify our priorities, list all those priorities, and allocate more effectively our resources available. I believe that these two things must happen to address those challenges.
Okay. Alright, so the program right now is scheduled to end in December 2020. As a Mongolian citizen and, obviously a Mercy Corps employee, what lasting impact do you think RCP will have on Mongolia in, 5 years, 10 years time?
I believe that RCP will be immensely successful, and by the time we end, we will have created several successful models that would be replicated, that we will promote and could be replicated by other partners, herders, farmers in all corners of Mongolia. Second, I believe that by the time our program finishes, government will we will help the government change its attitude and their perception, and they would invest more in agriculture than they used to before. And I believe that the government will focus and concentrate, most of the resources in supporting market-driven livestock industry. And third, I believe that all those factors combined, with our models and government change of attitude, I believe that investment in agricultural and livestock sectors will grow. Private investment, and will be comparable to the investment in mining sector. I believe that these things will happen in 10 years' time.
Awesome, that was really good. At what point in your memory, did RCP become more than an intellectual exercise, but an instrument for transformational change? So in other words, when did you start to see the potential that RCP had to affect change in the livestock sector?
Yeah, that's a difficult question.
Yeah, that's okay. We can talk about it. So, was there an experience in the field where you were visiting, a partner, a beneficiary, where you were like, wow, this is something that, if this scales up, this could affect so many people. I mean, maybe it was, when you were giving a speech after, portable corrals were procured somewhere. Maybe it was, maybe it was at the launch of the Hushat operations. Maybe it was at the study tour that you were helping to facilitate and to monitor, seeing how quickly these herders and how were picking up on like modern practices and how eager they were to learn?
I think that during the design of the project, it was, as you said, intellectual exercise. It was very theoretical. We believed that we could achieve a systemic change, and then we started our project in last April of 2017, and when we visited those entities that we worked with, especially like Kushat project, feedlot, Jeremy's farm, subgrants, then I realized that these interventions could lead to broader impact on lives of rural communities, and also have impact on business sector in rural Mongolia. This is when I realized that this is not just a separate individual, intervention, but it will trigger, the market systems. It will trigger the change in market systems.
So that was good. Only problem is when you mention things like the Kushat operation, or like the Kushat project, or like Jeremy's farm, there isn't, like, I understand you, but the people who will be watching this may not know what you're talking about, and so maybe it would be more effective. Let's do this again, and maybe you can talk about one of those experiences.
I thought I understood about Kushat project.
But we may not use these clips in order. Okay. So you just have to pretend that you're talking to like third graders who have no idea anything about Mongolia. Perhaps maybe talk about Jeremy, and like how talk about that study tour, and talk about what the impact that you saw there and how that could be replicated in more specific terms. Is that something that you can do, or we can also come back to this?
I can do, of course. It will take a long time. I'm trying to explain a feedlot, and then trying to explain what kind of study tour we conducted. I'm just worried that too much time, talking, and of course you're gonna edit it, cut it.
Okay.
I'm just worried.
Well,
let me
try. Let's see.
Let me explain briefly about feedlot. We are partnering with a farm called Zanadu Razorback in Bulgan province. They are doing a feedlot, which is buying cows from local herders, fattening them up, and selling them in 3 months, and they are selling it for a very good price, expensive. They are selling to high-end restaurants and hotels. We conducted study tour of Zabkhan province herders to this farm, and our herders were very excited. They saw, they went through every detail. They from the slaughtering until the meat was processed. They learned how to register their cows, how to cut them up, how to feed them, what kind of feed they should be fed, when, and how much feed they need, how often they should be vaccinated. So all this stuff they were taught during a 2-day study tour. So I believe that, and they also shared it with me, that they would go back to Zabkhan province, and at least there were seven participants, but at least 2 of them will be able to start this meat cattle farm, and by next week I expect them to invest in cows and build shelters and barns and start these operations.
And what does that show? What did you learn from what kind of impact was the study tour indicative of? Like, what kind of impact does it have? Is it going to have if replicated?
yeah, it means like this model will be replicated. More and more herders will turn to to these feedlot operations. They will start fattening, and so instead of grazing them on pasture lands, and destroying pastures, they would keep their cows in a closed barn and feed them, and there's a market growing, of this soft, high quality beef in Mongolia. Mongolia imports thousands of tons of high quality beef from Australia, from other countries, but we have all the resources needed to supply this kind of beef to our domestic market. So I believe that more and more farmers will start similar operations, and we will see reduction in numbers of meat import from other countries, which is good for everyone, for pastures, and herders can increase their income.
Great, thank you. That was wonderful. Okay, so RCP is a flagship resilience program. What does resilience mean to you in the Mongolian context, and what do you think it means for herders?
Generally speaking, resilience is a capacity of rural communities to live, work, and thrive in unfavorable conditions. Resilience for Mongolian herders means that they are building new mechanisms, resilience for Mongolian herders means that they are building protection mechanisms to live, and prosper in spite of various economic, natural, social, and political challenges that they currently have. Whatever.
And this is something that Inky talks a lot about, so maybe this is a better question for her to answer, but just in case.
So ask her.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. What do you think other development agencies in Mongolia can learn from RCP?
Other development agencies?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, building resilience is a new concept in Mongolia. I hope that other international agencies will learn, will learn from us and start other resilience projects and focus more on sustainable and long-term development of agricultural sector in Mongolia.
Okay, and what do you think other country teams in South and East Asia can learn from the Resilient Communities program? And I'm talking about Mercy Corps country teams. I would also hear, because I know this was what Eric said, I would concentrate on government partnerships in particular.
Same with other NGOs. Our Mercy Corps teams in other parts of the world can learn, from our mistakes. I hope that it will open the door to more resilience projects in other countries. I hope that our successful models will serve, as a motivation for other project teams to start a similar project. This partnership, with government could be also serve as one of the best examples because this is a key to success. I believe that we can teach them. They can come and learn, how we design this project, how we implement it, and how we monitor.
Okay. All right. So, do we want to return to a couple of questions?
Okay, let's return.
Let's go back. So, The first one that I flagged that we both agreed that maybe we should do again is, how does RCP respond to these challenges?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you know how you're going to approach it this time?
Yeah, I just forgot,
Okay.
some of the stuff I wrote, but I forgot to mention it.
That's okay. I would again emphasize the systemic nature of the program, the integrated nature of the program, and why that's important. Because it's you can't affect change in breeding without working in feeding, without working in veterinary services, without working in financial inclusion, because everything is integrated.
As you understand that to be successful you have to do a systemic change in the livestock sector, and all those components, areas of livestock sectors are connected to each other, like animal feed, animal health, breeding, meat markets, feedlots, fattening. So it's impossible to work only in one area and hoping to achieve a success and achieve all your goals in the entire sector. So we responded to these challenges by applying a new market system development approach. This was the key, one of the key factors in implementation of RCP. Second, we addressed those challenges by working in partnership, with local and national level government and private sector. So these two factors were crucial, and working, in all areas, in each component of the meat sector, including, breeding, feeding, animal health, meat markets. It was important to achieve our goals and objectives.
Okay. Try to keep your volume up. I'm not sure what the microphone captures, but
I'm not very good, I'm not good.
No, it's totally okay.
Talking loud.
What strategies, so the second one that I thought we should return to is, what strategies did your team employ to achieve what you've achieved?
I'm in danger of repeating the same.
It's okay. We're not gonna. It's not gonna be we're gonna cut it up.
Sure. Yeah, the strategy was that we focused on building resilience of rural communities. Resilience is defined as a capacity of rural communities to respond to shocks and stresses, and we believe that this was a key to achieve success in livestock sector. Second strategy was, again, we applied the new market system development approach. Third one was we worked in partnerships, and the fourth one, which is no less important, is that we were able, during implementation of the program, we were able to stop, monitor, evaluate, learn lessons, and then make changes in our program. So this was also very important.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anything that you feel like you didn't get to say that you'd like to emphasize?
Well, I would like to say that again, the Mercy Corps is well known in Mongolia for our innovative approach. We were again, I'm afraid I'm going to repeat it again. We started many activities that were back at the time were innovative, and for example, in 1999, we used to organize trainings by ourselves. We used to attract herders in rural communities. We attracted them by free lunch, for example, and then we changed our approach. We said you must come and share costs, and people and it happened, people started sharing costs, and at the end, and after several years, they started paying full price for the trainings. So you can imagine, whatever we did was new at the time, but it was very well adapted by all local stakeholders. Same with resilience. Resilience is a new project. Few people understand it, but in several years, people, Mongolian people, and not just Mongolian, but NGOs, other NGOs, and government, they will embrace this new concept, and instead of providing, one-time grants, and interventions, and they will focus more on sustainable and long-term development of Mongolia. And resilience is just a tool, to achieve this goal.
Okay. And I guess one last question. I'm sorry, I'm going over you.
Last
question. That may be a lot. We'll see. I think it's the last question now. My last question is, so there's a lot of development agencies in Mongolia right now, and a lot of them are focusing on agriculture, and a lot of them are focusing on some of the same problems that we are. So what makes RCP stand out, and what makes Mercy Corps Mongolia stand out? What is Mercy Corps Mongolia known for that is unique to Mercy Corps Mongolia in context of the Mongolian development landscape?
We have taken one of the hardest jobs, which is we're trying to make a change in the agricultural sector. Agricultural sector is the second biggest sector in Mongolia after mining, and it employs more people than in any other sector in Mongolia. So by just sheer size of this task is immense, it's huge. Second, we are taking a systemic approach, which is different than other NGOs are doing. Systemic approach. Instead of implementing, single individual interventions, we are tackling all components, all parts of this sector. And third one is that, we have very good relationship with government and business partners and on local and national levels. So this is unique, I would say, not only in Mongolia but probably in the rest of the world, the rest of Mercy Corps world. So I would mention them.
Why is it important to have government partnerships, to have strong government partnerships for the sustainability of a program?
Well, projects, we depend on funding, and then when funding is over, we will leave. But governments will stay. Governments are essential, one of the crucial parts of every local neighborhood. And government usually leads, the development of any country. Government has resources to make changes. So having them as our partner is a win-win situation. We help them, they help us, and our beneficiaries are the same. Rural people. Government and Mercy Corps beneficiaries are the same. So our interests, our goals and objectives are the same. So having them as our partner is key to our success.
All right. I think unless there's anything else you want to say, I think we're all set. Are we good?
Good.
Cool. I'm sorry I put you guys through such a long